Hello, this is Annette with Project Refine Life. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm here to do a VR to Julie at Peekaboo Rose for the Standout Decks of 2022. Now, last year, I did a VR to Don Michelle over at Boho Tarot, where I talked about the 12 most memorable new decks of 2021. Since Julie didn't put a cap on it, I needed to put a cap on myself. So I'm using a kind of throwback to the 12 along with the standout decks. These decks are not necessarily new in 2022, but new to me. And these decks either just had some kind of deep revelation for me, or kind of changed the way that I see things, or kind of deepened my practice in one way, shape, or form. So here we go. The Way Home Tarot. This deck had been on my radar for at least a couple of years. I don't even remember when it came out, but it's been on my list for a while, and I got it because the box was dented, and anytime that I can find a discount deck, I'm on it, because if it's a deck that I want and I've just been putting it off and I see a discount, heck yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go for it. And I'm really happy that I did, because this particular deck, it gives me a certain kind of vibe, which I can't even describe, maybe kind of like a wild unknown in a sense. I don't know. The art is beautiful. Some of the images have a lot of white space and very simple, but very telling within the art itself. And it doesn't even come with a guidebook, but I really, really like this deck. And it has become one of my go-to decks that kind of sits out by my desk. One of the ones that I just pull if I just want a quick read. And I'm really, really enjoying this deck so far. There's a few things that I really love about it, like the abundance really shows up within this deck, the way that she portrays it. And this Three of Swords, you know, so often we get the Three of Swords with the heart and the swords, and some of them are just so beautifully done. But this one, where you're dealing with that issue of time and it's breaking through on something that's really, like maybe you felt like you didn't have enough time with somebody or something, and it just breaks your heart, it pierces it. Just images like this that really, I don't know, they're just different than some of the other decks that I have. I've really enjoyed working with it, and this is one of them, one of the standout decks for 2022. Of course, there's always a card in the deck that maybe you're not too fond of. This is kind of the one for me. I don't know, it's those colors that are in the background. I get what she's trying to portray within the deck. Just, you know, there's always one, right? But overall, I just adore this deck. It's just been really, really great to work with. Sacred Symbols for Divination and Meditation Oracle deck. This deck has been, again, another one that was on my radar for quite a long time. I never got around to purchasing the indie version, but then this came out mass market, and this is a deck that, again, sits right at the side of my desk. So this deck has just been so wonderful. It's quick, it's easy. The symbols are easy to understand. The keyword or the title of the card has been easy to work with. Her messages within the guidebook, they're quick messages, but they get to the point, and I like the way that she describes the particular symbol. And I love how well-rounded the symbols are as well. So this has been a real standout deck for me in 2022. The Herbal Astrology Oracle. Oh my goodness, this deck is the deck that I have been waiting for when it comes to oracle decks and herbs, or hierbas rather, that plant medicine healing deck. I do have one oracle deck that I really love, but this deck has been such a standout for me. I've really enjoyed working with this deck. I love the subject matter of the oracle deck. I love that it brings astrology into working with that plant medicine, which I've said that, you know, that's kind of new to me. So working with that aspect and bringing that in and trying to get more familiar with that aspect is really going to bring another layer to how I'm reading and what I'm using these particular herbs for. I mean, that will have a deep impact on the way that I work with some of these things as well. Now, this deck, I'm kind of referring to this as the Curandera Oracle that is in my collection. So as far as my Curandera tarot decks, that would be the Herb Crafters Tarot. And this Oracle deck right here is my version of my Curandera deck for oracles. This is such a gorgeous deck. I am so happy to have this in my collection, and the fact that it's mass market, I'm just blown away by it. Okay, so I said that these decks didn't necessarily come out this year, and maybe not even necessarily this decade. So this is the Tantric Dakini Oracle, and this deck has come to teach me a few things, and I love, love, love the deck itself, the guidebook. I love how funky some of the art is. I just love that it's kind of this combination of ideas and thoughts, not necessarily based on Tantra, the idea of Tantra so much, not necessarily based on the Dakinis, but I just love the overall message within this deck and the art. I do love the art. And, you know, one of the main things that I figured this year is that my style, like my art style and what I want in a deck as far as the art style, has kind of shifted this year. It's kind of changed. And I'm enjoying this deck. It's really, really cool. And there's a reason that it's still being printed all these years later, right? So this is the Tantric Dakini Oracle. This deck here that lives in this little Peggy bag has really been an amazing deck, and I just truly love this deck. This is the Ancient Ritual Postures deck, and this deck is not really intended for oracle use. However, it does have a little bit of everything in here. So healing, divination, metamorphosis, spirit journey, and I do kind of use it as an oracle because the writing within the guidebook does give you enough meat to work with on an oracle type basis. However, this deck has come in so handy for me as far as taking those quick little like journeys through postures, and I don't have to like search for it. I just pull a card and boom, there we go. This is the posture that I'm working with today. I've yet to do a walkthrough on this. I really do intend to do one because I feel like it's a very important deck, especially if you do like to journey. This deck helps you reach a different state, and it's just been an amazing deck. And I'm so thankful for the work that they did in putting all of these statues and doing the research and creating these lovely, lovely type of journeys for these particular postures. I love this deck. It's been just wonderful. The She-Wolf Tarot, goodness gracious, I really didn't expect to love this deck the way that I do, but this deck is a very healing and beautiful, empowering deck that again touches a part that I may have had in a certain sense, but not quite as powerful as this one is. This has been an amazing, amazing deck. I really do enjoy it. Now, I did just about the same time get the Serpent Fire Tarot as well, but there's something a little bit different about the energy of this deck, which I really can't explain. I was looking for something to support feminine type healing and womb healing, and although it is covered in this deck, it is more empowering than just that concept. And like I said, I have a difficult time explaining just what it is, but this deck has really come in and filled a spot that really was not within my collection before that time. So this is an amazing deck as well. So that is the She-Wolf Tarot. The Lillifer Tarot. This little deck came in and I really, I loved Miriam's art, and so I was all in because I love the Reclaim Oracle. But when I got this deck in, I really didn't expect it to be what it was. And I was in from the beginning, but it has a lot to teach. I mean, again, we're dealing with astrology within the deck, and this little guidebook is not to be mistaken as a joke. This little deck is a powerful little deck. It is straight. It doesn't beat around the bush, but I love that about this deck. And then the art in itself, I love this art. I love her art. It's just so cool and so emotional. You can see so much just by looking at the face. I'm bringing it a little bit closer just so that you can see some of these faces on this deck. Look at that. You can really tell a lot of emotion just from her art, and I just think it's wonderful. I love the size of the deck and just working with it. There's only certain times when I work with it because it is a powerful little deck, but I love this one. This tarot deck really took me and just made me kind of weepy and earthy and grounded and emotional. This is the Tarot of the Strange Antlers. This is a French deck. It is completely in French. The guidebook's in French, but you know what? It doesn't matter because I don't use it anyway. There's enough within this art. It's so descriptive. And sometimes looking at the art kind of makes me take a little bit of a different turn than your regular RWS deck, just because of the way that her hands are placed or the shape of the antlers or what the antlers are doing. I adore this deck. This is a wonderful, wonderful deck. It's a thick deck, I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of hefty with the cardstock, but it feels good. It's satiny. I have a complete walkthrough on this too, so I'm not going to get into a bunch of details, but what I love about this deck is just the way that everybody is portrayed within the deck and some of the things that she's doing with her hands as an energy healer and Reiki practitioner and yoga instructor or teacher. I hate the word instructor, but teacher. I just love the way that some of the poses are and some of the hand gestures are within this deck. There's just so much emotion here. The Cantigy Oracle, this is a newer deck to my collection, and I just put it back in order, not so much for a walkthrough. I haven't even considered a walkthrough on this deck, and I don't know why, but I am going to be working with this deck for the new year. Now, I have looked through a few of the cards already and gone through the guidebook with a few. I've done a couple of readings with it, and then I put it back in order because I want to work with this as of the solstice week by week. And the art on this deck is just so gosh darn dreamy, and it just puts you into another headspace when you're working with this deck, the way that you feel, but yet you're grounded into the earth and everything of the earth. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous deck. I'm so excited to work with this within this new year. This is going to be, I can tell already, the guidebook. This guidebook is amazing, and it is an actual book. Like, look at this. This was actually created with the guidebook in mind first, or the book in mind first, and then the deck to accompany the guidebook. So that says a little bit about how deep this guidebook is. This is a fantastic deal. I love this deck so far, and I'm so excited to work with this in the new year. But this, again, is a real standout deck for 2022. Okay, guys, we're getting down to the last three. The Insomnia Tarot. Oh my goodness, this deck. I watched this deck from the beginning, from Kickstarter, and I wanted the deck, but I just wasn't sure it was for me. But there was a point where it's like, I just can't deny that I want this deck anymore. And I'm so glad that I have this. This is such a beautifully done deck. There's so much detail, so much that he had to do in order to achieve these shots. These are all photographs, and I really didn't think that I liked photography style decks before this. I have a couple within my collection, and that's about it. But this deck is completely amazing. It is deep. It gets into those deeper parts, gets into that subconscious mind, and I just don't even know what to say. It's just such a gorgeous, gorgeous deck. And there are things that he talks about within the guidebook. There's a complete walkthrough on my channel about this deck as well, where he talks about how he created these scenes. And I don't know, it's just an incredible deck. Beautiful, beautifully produced, and just the quality of the deck in general is just wonderful. This deck right here, the Death Doula. Now, the Death Doula and the Insomnia Tarot are something that I work with all the time and together, and these are part of the decks that never leave the side of my desk because I am just always working with these two together and separate. And oh my goodness, this deck, you know, I have talked about once before, but I'm going to talk about it again, and just in case you haven't heard me say this, but this deck is all about the tiny deaths, the deaths that we experience throughout our lifetime, and then we keep on going. We kind of rebuild ourselves and keep going. When I lost my son, there was a picture that was taken just 2 weeks before his death, and I kept looking at this picture and saying, I want to be her again. I want to be her again. And then there was a certain point when I realized that I would never be her again, that that person was gone. That's what this deck deals with, is those tiny deaths. When you say goodbye to one part of you that you had, or that you knew, or that it's just over at this point, that it's time for you to grow and expand into another version of yourself, a better version of yourself. And I'm not saying that losing my son was a good thing. I'm saying that it would have been a shame had I not been able to learn and grow from that experience. And it has caused me tremendous growth I never thought was possible, in a direction that I never thought I would take. But this deck deals with not only big issues like that, but the smaller things as well that sometimes we take for granted, that really do help us expand and grow as a person, as a being. And this deck is one of them. I love this deck. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice or not, but this deck is beautiful and I love it so much. The last deck I'm sharing with you today is the Ritual Tarot. This deck, this deck is amazing. And this deck brought me some real confidence into my reading that I did not have before having this deck. You know, I've always worked with decks that have titles and numbers, and I've always been able to refer to that, and maybe really kind of thought that I really didn't understand it as deeply as this deck kind of made me feel like I do. Just understanding the symbolism within the deck and being able to relate that to the particular card within the tarot has been amazing for me. It really has developed something within me that I didn't really acknowledge that I had a complete understanding of the tarot. And being with this deck, and I'm not saying complete, because there's never complete knowledge of anything. That's my true belief. Like, once you stop learning, you know, you can't grow anymore. So that's coming back to this, like, this deck has really taught me that I'm familiar with the tarot and I understand the tarot, and being able to look at these symbols, and then it takes me somewhere else when I'm working with this deck. It kind of puts me into a deeper mind frame, something that I had not experienced with other decks before. This is just such a gorgeous, gorgeous deck. And I love working with this deck alongside the Tantric Dakini. Just a beautiful, beautiful pairing. So this is the Ritual Tarot. I reached a milestone on my channel, and I never really anticipated, you know, coming to this point of 1,000 subscribers. I am so very thankful for all of you guys for joining me for this last year. Now, you guys know the way that I feel about this deck, the Death Doula Oracle. Well, the creator reached out to me and sent me a deck so that I could give away to somebody who I thought could use it. So I'm using this as a giveaway, as a thank you from the creator and from myself to somebody who would like this deck. Now, unfortunately, I can only send this deck out to somebody within the US. However, if you want to receive this deck and you are outside of the US and don't mind paying for shipping, I will be happy to send it to you. So in order to enter this giveaway, just enter a DD in the comments and I will enter your name into a giveaway that will be chosen by a computerized program, and I'll send you the deck as a thank you. I just want to say thank you for being here and for supporting me and for allowing me to share all these decks with you and these conversations. I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you inviting me into your home and into your life. So with all my love, thank you so much for spending this time with me this past year. From my heart to yours, I will see you later.